March School Board Recognition Ceremony. This evening, we have several groups to recognize, beginning with members of our middle school and high school who received Scholastic Art Awards. You'll not only get to meet the students, but you'll be able to see some of their art awards. Mr. Schackemeyer will be presenting those, our middle school principal. Then we'll be recognizing members of our honor choirs and bands from the high school. And then finally, just coming in from the slopes, are members of our cross-country team who went to state. So it's going to be a fun evening. But first of all, I know as parents and family members, you're interested in what the students will be receiving. Board Chair Newberg, would you please show an example of the certificate signed by the board chair and superintendent? If all works well, you'll receive a personalized copy with your very own name on it. Also, Mr. Mullen, would you please show the Peerless Bear Pin available only to students who receive recognition at our school board meetings? Mr. Mullen. I know you're envious, but they're the new model that has a white bear on an orange background. They're selling for something in excess of $5,000 on eBay, so take really good care of yours. I'd like to first then introduce Mr. Tim Schackemeyer, the principal of Central Middle School.
Thank you, Dr. Lovett. Once again, this year's Scholastic Art Awards process was competitive in the state of Minnesota, with thousands of pieces of art being received across the state. Congratulations to the following middle school and high school students who represented the district well in this annual competition. Jack Beck. Adriana Cook. Tim Hannigan. Jack Ogden. Brooke D. Canoe Lee. CJ Wiskow. Sophia Brown. Mike Haugen. Kylie Herrick. Abby Lillo. Zoe Malmstad. Riley Reese. Caden Schutte. Isabella Schultz. And a special thank you to the two central teachers, Brett Albin and Molly Vadness. From Sunrise Middle School, Martin Santiago Ojeda. Ethan Johnson. And a thank you to the Sunrise Park Middle School teacher, Margaret Jakoblich. From North Campus, Annika Dahl. Jessica Person. And thank you to the teacher at North Campus, Karen Ryland. From South Campus, Alec Akins. Ashley Fritters. Kiara Hone. Kaylee Russler. Christina Tlusty. Ben Vanderbosch. Olivia Johnson. Shiloh Lowe. And a special thank you to the two teachers from South Campus, Sean Gritzmeyer and Jennifer Latouf. Okay, invite them all back up. That concludes the Scholastic Art Awards. And could I have all the art award recipients come back up and stand in front of the school board? We're going to take a photo of you. And as they come up here, let's give them all one big last round of applause. Thank you. I'm going to pick you up. She told me to do that.
Okay, we'll start here, and then parents can definitely take photos as well if you'd like. We'll start by looking at this camera, though. Is it possible to scrunch together a bit more? And you might, if you want to do 2 lines, 2 rows, you could do that too. Anybody want to do that? It'll be like an art arrangement. All right. Sorry. Okay. On in here. All right. Here. Don't tell anybody I'm doing this, please. I'm not going to do that. Don't videotape this. I'm just going to do that. Okay. Perfect. Ready? Okay. 1, 2, and 3. Perfect. Thank you. And then any parents, by all means, I'll go out all the way.
Let's get our fridge. Let's start now. Okay, you see. Before we go on, could we have all the family members of the art honorees please stand? If you came along tonight and have been cheering on, please stand. Congratulations to you. Our next groups are members of our high school choirs who have received special state recognition or SEC recognition. I'll be doing this by category, if all works. It's an impressive list of musicians. We're not going to be asking them to sing or to play, although if they burst into song, just applause, please. Our first group are members of the ACDA 910 Honor Choir. William Novak. Brenna Ryland. Caitlin Stender. The next group is the SEC All-Conference Choir. I had an opportunity to be there along with a number of our leadership team, and it was a very special, exciting evening. In the choir, Shelby Butler, All-Conference Choir. Julio Cabrera. Now, the couple aren't here, but we'll read their names. Elizabeth Eink. Noah Ellenberg. Kelly Herzog. Marina Konold. James Kruzaska. Thank you to James for the pronunciation practice session. Katie Shevik. The next four were not only members of the SEC All-Conference Choir, but are also in All-State Choir. Very special recognition, double recognition. Krister Copeland. Isaac Laterno. Joseph Pereira. And Paula Vasquez. I'd also like to acknowledge two directors who could not be here this evening but deserve very special recognition, Wendy Suya and Marie Demet. Members of the recognized choirs, would you please come up for a photograph with the school board?
Act like you like each other.
Oh, just a tiny bit of squishing in, and then I think we're set. Maybe this way. Exactly. Okay, and we make sure we can see all of our board members. Ready? Look here. Are you ready? Okay, 1, 2, and 3. We'll take a few shots here. Perfect, thank you. And then in here.
At the same time. You got that? I'm covered. I showed them to everyone at the competition.
Before we go on to the next group, could we ask all the family members of our choir recognized students to please stand and be recognized? I imagine there's a great deal of singing around the house, so you've heard this before. Tonight, we have high school band and orchestra. Our orchestra program actually is just at 5th and 6th grade. It will grow, but some of the members recognized tonight played in the SEC orchestra. So they also play in band, but some you'll also hear the orchestra. First of all, Eric Johansson, All-State Band. He's practicing. The next two are All-State Band and the Gustavus Honor Band. Zach Beauclair. And Tejas Navarti. Next All-State Band, SEC All-Conference Band, is Ray White. I have to take a big breath for the next two because they're present and they've practiced a lot. First, All-State Band, SEC All-Conference Orchestra, Gustavus Honor Band, Concordia Honor Band, Samantha Engrave. All-State Orchestra, SEC All-Conference Orchestra, Gustavus Honor Band, Concordia Honor Band, and Winona State Honor Band, Katie Miller. Next, we'll be recognizing members of the Augsburg 910 Honor Band, Justin Silly, Jesse Doherty, Declan Hoff, Catherine Jarnigan. They have a quartet that they're working on tonight. Haley Koster. Anna Lee. Brianna Ollinger. Madeline Schulte. Olivia Wennen. And James Williams. We have 3 members of the Gustavus Honor Band. Elsa Balata, Zach Duncanson, and Nick Wilson. Members of the SEC All-Conference Band, Lydia Anderson. And Callista Hughes. Big Breath SEC All-Conference Band, Gustavus Honor Band, Signe Aslan. Also practicing tonight, SEC All-Conference Band, Gustavus Honor Band, and Winona State Honor Band, Anthony Eterno. SEC All-Conference Orchestra, Jared Silly. Two recognitions for SEC All-Conference Orchestra and Gustavus Honor Band, Emma Larson, who's not with us, but also Greta Whiteberg, who is with us this evening. And finally, the University of Minnesota Honor Band, Jenny Golding. Not able to be with us, but send their greetings and special recognition, our band directors, Jeremy Rockford and Shannon Anderson. Our honored band and orchestra performers, please come for your photograph without your instruments. They're shy, they usually get to hide behind their instruments, so this is new. Even though we know it's very difficult to tell who the parents and family members are, will the family members of the band and orchestra performers please stand and be recognized. Thank you. Finally, not exactly fresh from the slopes, but a group that sometimes has had to travel a long way for snow this year, and we need special recognition, and probably their parents as well. Our White Bear Lake area high school Nordic team performed well. Our girls finished third in sections, and our boys took home fourth. 3 of our Nordic skiers completed at state, and we'll honor them now. Keely Nisler. Olivia Schwintek. Douglas Shield. And our Nordic ski coach who tried to find snow wherever he could, Seth Salinger. Can we have members of the cross-country ski team come forward for, and you make 2 or 3 rows, whatever is necessary. Do we have any family members from the cross-country ski team? Please stand and wave. Thank you. We'd like to thank our board members, everybody who's here this evening, and special recognition to our students. We do have some cookies in the back on the left rear. If you want to take a few minutes, our school board meeting will begin right at 7 o'clock. Thank you so much.
Of the School Board of Independent School District 624. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Chapman?
Here.
Fahey here. Kimball?
Here.
Mullen?
Here.
Newberg?
Here.
Newmaster?
Here.
Wilson?
Here.
All right, would you all please stand and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we have before us an agenda for this evening's meeting. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Wilson. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Chapman. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, we have an agenda. We'll now turn to the consent agenda. This is an agenda which consists of routine items which are before the board on a monthly basis, so we kind of aggregate them all into one item. Included within the consent agenda every single month is a resolution to accept gifts made to the school district, and this month is no exception. We have a couple of larger gifts. We have a gift from the White Bear Lake Lions Club to support the National Honor Society at South Campus. We also have a larger gift from Pinnacle Engineering to support our robotics team at the high school. We also have just a slew of individual gifts to support the senior programs Meals on Wheels and to other programs operated by the senior program through Community Services and Recreation. Having said that, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
A motion by Mr. Kimball. Is there a second?
Second.
I think Ms. Newmaster got you by a nose, Mr. Mullen, so this requires a roll call vote.
Chapman?
Aye.
Fahey, aye. Kimball?
Aye.
Mullen?
Aye.
Newberg?
Aye.
Newmaster? Aye. Wilson?
Aye.
Right, the consent agenda passes. Now is the time for public forum. This is an opportunity for members of the public to address the board on issues of interest or concern to them. We do ask members of the public who want to address the board to fill out cards, which are on the table over to your right, and bring them up to the dais ahead of time. I do have 3 cards here this evening. So far, if anybody else wants to fill one out, they certainly can. But I'm going to go in the order in which they were placed on my desk. So the first speaker is Aaron Florin. Aaron, if you want to join us at the podium, please. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm actually part 1 of 2, and Lynn Hazelman will also be speaking on the same issue.
Thank you.
As you probably know, autism spectrum disorder affects 1 in 52 children, which is 2% of the population. So every school in White Bear Lake is affected by ASD. Dyslexia affects about 1 in 6 children. That is 17 to 20% of our students in our district. This means that in every classroom, for every age, there are students who are dyslexic. This adds up to a lot of kids. Our district serves approximately 8,100 students. Roughly 1,000 to 1,600 of them are dyslexic. In fact, Congress also acknowledged this fact when dyslexia was added as a qualifying condition under both federal IDEA and state codes. Since that time, there is a tremendous amount of evidence detailing these genetic neurobiological pathways. Most importantly, what works prescriptively for this prevalent brain type. Our current curriculum of what works for the 80% does not work for the 20%. What works for the 20% works for everybody, but is required for the 20%. Despite the science, we find that only a few lucky children in our district are provided evidence-based remediation using a prescriptive, structured approach. Teachers in our district are searching for answers and have identified this gap in their education. They are looking for structured approaches that have been proven to reach and teach these children. We have done our due diligence and responded to the requests of educators and parents alike. We have provided information to every school, including ALC in our district, with accurate information. We have sent emails, attended meetings, asked questions, advocated, educated, and waited. We too would like to see dyslexia representatives in our home district. Concerned parents, sometimes desperately, seek answers and directions. It's a sad fact that only those with resources can afford what exists outside of what Bear has to offer. Our concern tonight is that these bright children are marginalized despite the vast amount of research. They are asked to change when instruction is what needs to change. They are denied their potential and continue to perform below their ability due to not having access to tangible solutions. By our own numbers, White Bear Lake reportedly had 549 students who took the MCAs for reading proficiency that had qualified for special education. A special note, that was a 9% increase over 2015, according to the Minnesota report card. A dismal 39% scored proficient. Studies show that approximately 80% of children that qualify for special education are, in fact, unidentified dyslexics. Using the same numbers, that means that we are serving approximately 1,300 dyslexics that have not qualified and probably never will for special education and are in our special education population. We are asking for our departments to take an approach that will address the root of the problem and not the categories of the problem. We acknowledge that special education students are costly to the district and only 2% of the promised funds are reimbursed. We offer to continue our advocacy work with the district and our new administration to prioritize dyslexia and further reduce the special education caseload and save those precious funds for others.
Thank you very much, Ms. Florin. And I understand Ms. Hazelman has part 2. Welcome, Ms. Hazelman.
Thank you. Dyslexic students, by definition, have at least average intelligence. They simply need to be identified early. Studies show that about 92% can, in fact, be identified by age 5, and given explicit, evidence-based remediation that is delivered with fidelity. It's systematic, explicit, and multisensory. As parents and advocating members of Minnesota's Decoding Dyslexia, we implore you, our school board, to help identify and train leaders in a district that will facilitate deep knowledge and understanding of dyslexia. Additionally, we'd like dyslexia set as a priority that needs to be included in all literacy discussions. Imagine being a dyslexic student sitting in class day after day, failing, struggling, despite knowing you are smart, despite being told by those that you rely upon to work harder, to focus, to wait for it to click, or simply to read more. Imagine that you know you have dyslexia, yet you are not offered the prescriptive remediation that you need. Or even worse, that you don't know and you suffer in silence thinking the problem is a shameful result of you. Every day you're told to be more motivated, and every day you show up more motivated, but you end up with the same result. A student who struggles but fails daily is not lacking motivation. Sadly, the statistics of this damage to self-confidence too often becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy of personal and academic failure. Now imagine being the parents and advocating for these children with the current and research-based information about dyslexia and being told that the school does not have the prescriptive resources your child does not qualify. These kids are being told to wait while our education catches up. Neighboring districts are taking notice and responding. Districts including Stillwater, Matamidi, Minnetonka, and St. Cloud are not only listening, but acting and bringing solutions to general ed and special ed. We want to thank Dr. Lovett and all the members of the administration that have been here to support us, that we've worked closely with. They've been very responsive, and we're very grateful for that. Dyslexia is real, and White Bear owes it to these kids to allow them to reach their potential. In parting comments, the first of this is from the preeminent researcher on dyslexia. Her name is Dr. Sally Shaywitz. She states, "We do not have a knowledge gap. We have an action gap. These children are our responsibility. We have been tasked with being overseers of those that we lead. We're leading some pretty valuable people, and we cannot neglect this post that we have been given." Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hazelman. Thank you, Ms. Florin. I understand you have met with Dr. Lovett, and if you have not yet, I'm sure you'll be meeting with Dr. Kazmarchek, and I'm confident that they'll work together with you to address strategies to solve these concerns. Thank you. All right, and the last speaker that I have a card for this evening is Kathy Weir. Kathy, welcome.
I'm here on behalf of the Matoska PTO. We're here to speak on our concerns regarding the IB assessment that is currently going on. We are under we have been informed that the CARE assessment has been taking place, and we are hoping that our voices will be heard in regards to this assessment. We currently have over 500 students at the school, and many of them are there by choice, because the parents of these students feel very strongly about the importance of the IB learning system. So I'd like to read you a little bit of why I personally chose. I am a member of the Matoska community, and I'm writing to let you know how important the IB curriculum is to me and my family. Last spring, when we started looking for a house, having moved to Minnesota for the benefit of my daughter's education, despite working in Wisconsin, our family limited our house search to within the White Bear Lake School District with the express purpose of taking advantage of the IB school systems. We chose to join the community that had a commitment to a global education and world citizenship for their students. The curriculum that differentiates this school is highly important to our children, families, community, and country, as this learning approach assists our children in developing into conscientious adults, which is one of the greatest services we can offer our children. And we are extremely excited that the IB program is available here at both the elementary and the middle school level. We feel this is a great investment in our students and their cultural learning, their ability to become successful adults, and their ability to become world citizens. And we would very much like the opportunity to allow our community to voice our extreme support of the IB system and everything it stands for. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Weir. I know I have received many emails since Saturday from parents at Matoska, and I think the theme that I'm getting from many of these emails is that there may be some misinformation about what we're doing with our study of the IB system in the White Bear School District, where we are in that study, and what the future steps are. We first began discussing an IB assessment in October, and our discussions are on the recording on our website for our October 24th work study. We were presented with the possibility of engaging in a 3-stage study through CARE, which is an acronym at the University of Minnesota. We discussed various options. Should we just go with stage 1? Should we go with stage 1 and 2? Should we go through all 3 stages? We approved our contract with CARE at our January 9th meeting. The materials are on our website, the board packet's on the website, and it's clear we approved a 3-stage study with CARE. And that the second stage, at least, of that study involves communication with stakeholders to get input on their feelings of the importance or lack thereof of the IB system to them as students, to them as families, to them as staff in our district. So we on the board are committed to completing this entire study, getting as much data and information from all stakeholders before we make a decision on what we are to do. And there has been one of the emails asked me, well, what have you decided to do with IB? No decision has been made. The board wants to see all the data, the complete results of this assessment before we make any decision whatsoever. But Ms. Weir, I really appreciate your remarks today. It's very helpful to us. Thank you. All right, we'll now turn to information item C1, and that is recognition of the Patriots Pen State winner and the Peace Poster State winner. Dr. Lovett.
Madam Chair, members of the board, we have two very special young guests today, and I'm going to ask Ms. Vetty to introduce our guests and their support teams, and they can all come forward.
And as our guests are approaching the podium, I will just literally turn over the mic to Kari Jansen, who will tell about two of our state-level winners within our student population.
Welcome, Ms. Jansen.
Good evening. We have a couple of awesome seventh graders with us this evening. Our school, Central Middle School, has participated in the VFW Patriots Pen Contest for 15 years. And 2 times out of the last 3 years, we've had the state champion. For that essay contest, over 5,000 students compete across the state of Minnesota. And so McKenna Ostrowski is behind me, and she is our state champion. And the theme this year was writing an essay discussing the America I believe in. Major Barry Hendrickson sends his regrets. He can't be here this evening. Normally he would come and say something about this. And McKenna just got the results of her national contest. She finished 50th out of 54 national essays, and she's going to bring home at least $1,000 for her work with this essay. So congratulations to McKenna. Hey. All right. And seventh graders also participate in the Lions Club Peace Poster Contest. This year, the theme was Celebrate Peace. The reason it landed in seventh grade American history is because 15 years ago, we didn't have art, except in 8th grade. And so it ended up landing in our class because it's a theme around peace, world peace. And so each fall, students in 7th grade continue still under the history teacher's guidance to make a poster reflecting the theme, the national theme. And Carrie Carney and myself were trying to think about how many state champions we have. We believe we have 5 state champions over the last 15 years for the Lions Club Peace Poster Contest. And the winner this year was Patrick De Los Santos. He's brought his poster. It's amazing. He's going to show it to you. And Bob Lundberg is also here from the Lions Club, and he'd like to say something.
Welcome, Mr. Lundberg.
Patrick and I would like to say a bit about the Peace Poster Contest. The Peace Poster Contest is the largest art contest in the world. About 600,000 kids participate in that contest every year from 75 different countries. Now, Patrick's poster was chosen as the winner from White Bear Lake. Then he went to the next step, and the next step is the district contest, which covers most of the state of Minnesota, and he won that contest. There are 2 more steps. The 5M contest, which covers a whole area of several of the provinces of Canada and several states in the United States. His poster was one of the finalists in that step. Then there's one more step, and that is the international winner, and that winner is invited to New York City. The winner's family, a teacher from that school, for a 3-day all expense paid trip to the United Nations, where the winner is awarded a $5,000 scholarship. I'll let Patrick talk a little bit about his poster, but a unique thing about this poster is that the students cannot use any words or any numbers, no letters or no numbers, to portray the theme of for that year. And the theme for this year was a celebration of peace. Patrick, go ahead.
Mr. Lundberg, you might want to move that microphone down just a little bit for him.
Can we?
Yeah.
How about if we go right over there?
Do I talk about the concept?
Yeah. Talk about the contest.
So, what I first thought of for my peace poster is that peace should start from within our hearts, and that if every different walks of life, so I have 2 different hands of each different race. So then if we have everybody from different walks of life and different races unite together, they can work hand in hand to have peace around the whole world.
Kenna and Patrick, if you stay there, we have a couple of things for you on behalf of the school board. It's the podium because you're going to need a hand free here. McKenna, congratulations so much. We are so proud of you. Here's a certificate honoring you, and then we also have the coveted bear pin, which you will wear proudly. The only way you can ever get one of those is being honored by the school board of White Bear Lake. And Patrick, congratulations to you too. What a lovely poster. We're so proud of you. Yeah, I think Ms. Vetty would like to take a picture of us. Why don't you stand right in front of us, kids?
1, 2, and
yeah, Bob, come on in. Yeah, come on,
Kari.
Come on, Kari. Come on, Kari.
Hey,
This is
Kari.
in order. Yes. Direction.
all right. Very good. Okay, look here. 1, 2, and 3. Make sure you can see me. Perfect. I can see all of you. We're in a good place. Thank you.
Way to go, kids. Boy, how impressive those kids are. All right, we'll turn to information item C2, and that's recognition of the high school student literary magazine, Sensicality. Ms. Youngbauer is here, and who will introduce this? Dr. Lovett?
Well, Madam Chair, we also have another national winner, and Ms. Newberg, I know that you're familiar with the Writing Center. You've been there 100 times or so. Ms. Youngbauer, the coordinator of our Writing Center. Please share with us what the news is.
And you might want to pull that microphone back towards you, Carolyn. Thank you.
You're taller than a 7th grader.
I am. Not by much, though. So last spring, I came across a contest sponsored by the National Council of Teachers of English. It's the program to recognize excellence in student literary magazines. And so I thought this would be a good opportunity for Sensicality, so I submitted it to the contest and received word in January that we were awarded the highest honor. It is a national competition. There were 334 entries nationwide, and only 17 of them were awarded the highest honor, and Sensicality was the only one in Minnesota to be awarded that distinction. So we are, here's the letter, we are very honored and really proud of all of the work that the students did, both the students that contributed and then the students that I worked with last year to put it together. The 2 students on the committee last year have both graduated, but we're putting together our new edition, and I have Sam with me tonight, and she can talk to you a little bit about kind of our process and what we're doing for this year.
Welcome again, Sam.
So at Sensicality, at the beginning of the year, there was an announcement put out where if you wanted to work for this journal, you could show up and there would be a meeting and you would learn all the things that you needed to know about this. I didn't know about this until the end of last year when we were asked to submit things to the journal and put things in. And so I thought it'd be interesting to join and see how it actually was put together this year. So myself and another girl, Claire Hank, I believe her name is, we've worked together to help put together this year's journal. It involves, we stay after school once a week on Mondays, and we end up looking through all the work that's been submitted for the past week and a half, and we read through everything and decide if that's something we think we can use in the journal along with the artwork that's submitted. And then recently, we've been finishing up all the entries, looking at everything, making sure it's working, and we've been pairing those off with different photographs or different pieces of artwork that other students have submitted, and then we'll pair those together and send this off to get published and created. Later in the spring, there's generally a banquet or a presentation. Often some of the students that have submitted their artwork or their writings will come in and either present or read what they've written and show off to the community. We actually do have a couple authors that come in, and we can talk to them and see how work is published and how things work and how we can bring the work that we've spent, all the time we've spent working on this, into a real-world application.
And this is a remarkable publication. I mean, it's very professionally done. It has all the artwork reproduced, the prose, the poetry. It's just wonderful. And at the event that you referenced, Sam, there will be opportunities to visit the Writing Center afterwards, and you can purchase Sensicality for the bargain price of, is it still $5 an issue? Yes, so we'll make sure we get that date out of when this event is, and I encourage.
It's the Sips and Swallows event, and we have two local authors this year. David Opegard and Christy Belcamino are our guest authors on our kind of celebration of writing panel. It's April 27th. It's a Thursday at 7 o'clock. You all will be receiving an invitation in the coming weeks, but I'll kind of formally announce here that everybody is welcome. It's open to the public. Also, everybody is welcome to come at 7 o'clock. And we have a lot of students who read their writing, and then I do a slideshow presentation of all of the artwork too, so you can kind of get the full effect of all of the talent of all of these students who've contributed and shared their work with us.
And what I've always enjoyed about that event, Ms. Youngbauer, is that you have two students who are interviewing the authors up on stage, and it's just fascinating to hear the interplay between students of writing, students of literature, and published authors.
Yes. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's a fun event. I encourage everybody to come. So.
All right, well, it's on my calendar.
Thank you.
Sam, Ms. Youngbauer, thanks so much for joining us here tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we'll turn to information item C4, the Superintendent's Report. Dr. Lovett.
Madam Chair, we have one more item, the Community Forum for Seniors update.
C3, excuse me.
And I'd like to introduce Community Services and Recreation Director Tim Maurer and Senior Program Coordinator Tara Jebin Singh to provide an update on not the youngest of children, but our senior citizens and some very important work that has been going on in our community.
Welcome.
Chair Newberg, members of the board, thanks for having us. We are here to celebrate the work that happened with the Community Forum on Seniors. As you may or may not know, this work started prior to my time here back in 2015 with my predecessor, Christine Werkamp. They felt there was a need in our community to review and look into the services that we provide for our seniors. So our Community Services Advisory Council got together and combined with local businesses, nonprofits, and city municipalities to form the Community Forum on Seniors. Their initial work done in the process was to do a phone survey and to determine what's important in the community as we look to service and take care of our seniors. And 5 areas came up of focus in the areas of housing, health and wellness, services, recreation, and transportation. The work that has been done through the course of that entire next year up until now, we celebrated on February 15th last month with our last large group Community Forum on Seniors meeting. It was really great to have everybody back in one place, and we took the time to honor the work that was done, celebrate our successes, and share with the community, and then more importantly, had time at the end for the community to share with us, to give us their feedback and insight about the process, the work that we've been doing, how it's affecting them, and how we can continue to support them in the future. It's a team effort for a huge, to take on a huge role like this with the forum, and I think we need to take time to thank people from our department ourselves, the Community Services Department, and Tara and her staff at the Senior Services Center, our local businesses, nonprofits, our cities from we had municipality representation from all of our cities within the White Bear area. as well as the citizens that just took part to be a part of our process as well. So I placed in front of your seats tonight, you guys will see, or the board will see that we had the brochures prepared for our event back in February. You're welcome to page through those at your leisure. We also had, Tara worked with, it was what group? GTN here in local to put together a video. On the second page of the brochure, there's a link about halfway down that directs you to our community services portion of our website. So if you want to see the full-length video, you can. It's about 10, 11 minutes. We're going to show a quick portion, the first minute and a half, just to kind of give you an idea of what the video was about. From there, Tara will continue to speak to you about the work and how the forum will continue to look and work going forward.
It's been a great place.
Uh-oh.
For us to raise our family, and I think it still is. I know that people are coming here. Seniors are coming here because their kids say, "Come here and live."
Within the next few years, the number of seniors would actually increase to the point where it would be greater than the number of children in school. These were the folks who over time had raised the children, had paid the taxes, had supported the schools and supported our community. And as they aged, was the community going to be supporting them?
And that's been the biggest thing about this, Community Services Advisory Council Forum, is that it has given conversation, opened up opportunities for discussion, and identifying issues. We got to take care of our seniors. It's the right thing to do, and it's what we got to do.
In 2015, the Community Services Advisory Council, made up of representatives from the school district, municipalities, elected officials, nonprofit, service, and community organizations, initiated a community engagement project in hopes of building local awareness of senior issues.
So that provides a nice little idea of what the video is about. And like I said, the video is posted on the YouTube links posted on our community services website. If you go to our portion, the community forum on seniors has their own link on the left-hand side of the page. So from here, I will hand it over to Tara.
Hello again. I just wanted to give you a little bit of an update on where the work of the Community Forum on Seniors has landed and how it continues. So after this video and after some discussion, the large group of folks who met at our last meeting, it was over 60 individuals of the maybe 100, 150 who had participated at the many different meetings, continue to discuss, to make plans for their next steps in their different action teams. And some of the work that we were doing as a large group has found homes in different locations. So CLASS, the Consortium of Lake Area Senior Services, which we as a district are part of, along with Matamidi and Maplewood, North St. Paul, as far as the school districts, many of the local municipalities, service groups, senior service providers, things like that, they're part of CLASS. That organization is going to continue some of the advocacy work and gathering people together and giving them a structure or a format to continue to meet. So they've created an ad hoc committee on housing, transportation, and community engagement. And that couples with the work that they already do in senior programming and networking amongst the different organizations that are serving the area. So we can feel confident that some of the community engagement work will continue on an ongoing basis. The other thing I wanted to let you know is because of the work of the Community Forum, the senior program itself has started a White Bear Area Senior Services provider networking group. So we are working as professionals quarterly so that we can learn more about each other, cross-promote, cross-refer, and then start to figure out what are some of the gaps in service in our area, and see not only how we can draw in service providers who we may be lacking here, but then also how to provide some professional development to up our technical capabilities within the area and folks that are serving seniors here. We also have the Housing Awareness Day will return again this fall. The housing guide will be updated. We continue to have new housing developments added in the area, and the transportation guide should be released within the next few weeks. So those are all things coming. And then I also want to thank the Community Services Advisory Council, because they have continued to support this work going into the future. So we anticipate educational engagement events and programs to continue to be supported throughout and into the future. So that's nice to hear as somebody who advocates for seniors, to know that we have not just a flash in the pan interest, but a continuing ongoing investment in our seniors. And just a couple little highlights too, that the work that we're doing hasn't only been of interest to us. The Lifetime Communities Report is coming out by the Metropolitan Area Agencies on Aging. They looked at about 20 different community engagement processes around the metro area regarding senior services. We are 2 of them. So that's pretty impressive for our local area. And when that comes out, I'll make sure to highlight that on our community forum page so people can link to that. The other thing is, if this 1.5 minutes wasn't enough, you can watch the 12-minute video. And if that's not enough, we're featured in the next Northeast Journal. So that'll be looping on local cable news as well, and we'll link that on our website. And then lastly, Ramsey County Public Health has been looking into taking an inventory and all that's been going on in senior services throughout Ramsey County. They're taking on a program to try to encourage greater networking and working together. And they have been so impressed by the work that all of us up here in White Bear have been doing, that they're considering using it as a template for how to encourage other communities and neighborhoods to organize and to start talking together to become more age-friendly communities. So I think to be considered an area that has best practices is very honoring and humbling at the same time. So that work will continue. I just want to finish off by challenging the board, as we have all of the groups that we're working with, to continue to consider seniors and all the work that you do. Not only the impact that decisions and future planning have on seniors, but also how they can contribute, how they can participate, and how they can add value to the work that we're doing here in the district. And then also just to thank anybody who participated in the forum, and if anybody wants to continue to get involved or know how to volunteer or know more about it, check the website or contact me at the senior program, and we'll connect you to whatever you need. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Ms. Jebin Singh. Mr. Moore, does anybody have any questions from either for either of our 2 presenters? Ms. Newmaster, I know you are on the advisory committee for community services.
And I can just say that it is an amazing group from the organizers that kind of made the opportunity available for this amazingly energized bunch of seniors to get together. And they're not just saying, what can you do for us? They're saying, what can we do for you? We have skills. We may be retired, and now we're ready to work on our next stage. And they have an amazing mix of organization, business background, hobbies that have now become passions, and they want to volunteer, and we need them. It's a good group. I'm impressed.
Anyone else have any comments or questions? Mr. Kimball.
Yep, just comment. Thank you both for the presentation. This is an outstanding document, and I just can't wait to get home and see the rest of that 12.5-minute video, because you just are teasing. You teased us with that 1.5 minutes.
Well, George, you're kind of a senior. You might be in that video.
Look in the mirror there, Chair Newberg. And then the advice to consider seniors and all that we do for various reasons, really good advice, and we will do that.
Thank you.
Anyone else for our presenters? Thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
All right, now we'll turn to item C4, the Superintendent's Report. Dr. Lovett.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Before this evening's meeting, we recognize Scholastic Art Award winners, really remarkable group of middle school and high school students, and acknowledge the wonderful work of their teachers, band and orchestra participants who performed at honor all conference and all state competitions, and members of our Nordic ski team who competed at state. It was a very special evening and very full this evening. We also want to acknowledge a couple weeks ago, White Bear Lake Area Schools was one of more than 40 school districts which participated in Reimagine Minnesota, what is called the World Cafe, an event which was hosted with four other school districts, many community members, board members, members of our team. The focus is really on helping us develop an educational plan, not just for White Bear Lake, but all of our school districts to address integration, access, opportunity, educational achievement, issues of equity. So we had district parents, leaders, and students who participated in this World Cafe event. I want to especially acknowledge a number of our students who participated as leaders on that evening, and then the following day at the Ties building, our students were among about 300 students in the metropolitan area, where we were listening to student voices about these same issues. We'll be presenting more to the school board, but I want to acknowledge the important participation of our school board members and our leadership team. February, I love to read. Our board members were actively involved. I acknowledge that in our elementary schools, as were community leaders. I know a couple weeks ago, the Mayor Emerson, wrote a column in the White Bear Press describing her experience. So it's about reading to students, but it's also a wonderful opportunity to listen to students and engage with them. So thank you to all of you who participated. If you missed February, you can still volunteer to read in our schools. Students on stage, we have some wonderful events coming up for us all to see. The middle school musical Lion King Jr. will be performed in April, but the tickets go on sale in just 2 weeks. On March 20th, they can be obtained online. In addition to the middle school musical in April, most of our elementary schools have some special performances going on, including musicals. We'd encourage you to look on your school district web pages or contact our office for more information. We also want to acknowledge a very important point that's related to the last conversation, and that is we'll have tickets available at certain performances free for our senior members of the community. Recognitions during March. In addition to wrapping up I Love to Read Month and Read Across America, which was March 2nd, March is National Nutrition Month, Music in the Schools Month, and Women's History Month. March 3rd was Employee Appreciation Day, and also an event that's coming up that Bree or Hakeem would normally talk about is Spring Break, which starts immediately after school ends on Friday. Neither Bree nor Hakeem are able to be here this evening, but I'd like to acknowledge they've been doing a lot of work in the background. Both Bree and Hakeem have been actively involved in our legislative breakfasts at the regionally and locally here, represented students extremely well. I'd also like to acknowledge that both are working on a project with Board Chair Janet Newberg, discussed with them that they'll be presenting at our work study meeting in April, and Bree actually met with both our high school student advisory committee and middle school advisory committee last week, so you'll be hearing more about that. Really, conversations about understanding our school culture and what we can do to make it stronger so that everybody really belongs. So that ends the report this evening.
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Lovett. We'll turn to discussion item D1, and that is a first reading of various school board policies. I'm going to outline how we review policies briefly, and then I'm going to turn it over to Policy Committee member George Kimball to discuss the three policies that are on for first reading tonight. We have a number of policies that exist in this district. Occasionally we have new policies that need to be considered. When our existing policies need to be amended or edited, or when we need to review potential new policies, they come to the Policy Committee for review. We talk a lot. We work with cabinet members, staff members to come up with drafts. Then they come to the school board for what's known as a first reading, which is an opportunity for the board members to discuss, raise any questions they have about them, come to some sort of agreement about whether or not we want to move forward with them. The policies that get through first reading will then be put on the board agenda for the next month for the second reading, which is our opportunity to vote on them. So tonight we have 3 policies on for first reading, and we'll turn it over to Mr. Kimball.
Okay, thank you. Of the 3 policies, the first 2 really have minimal suggested revisions. They mostly have to do with rewording. The third policy has significant changes, and so we'll talk about those. So the first policy that we have on the agenda is Policy 506, and that is White Bear Lake Area School District Student Discipline Policy. And so obviously that has to do with maintaining discipline, ensuring there's no interference with the educational process in schools. And as I mentioned, this is one that does not have significant changes. If, as the board and anyone else with the packet is looking at the policy, if you scroll to page 76 of the packet itself, really the biggest, most change is just a wording designating the person having the responsibility and authority for the building rules has been changed from principal or / building supervisor to building administrator, and that change appears throughout the policy. And then towards the end on page 82, we've added there's a long list of possible consequences to students who violate rules, and one of the, or in addition, is loss of school privileges, such as loss of passing time. But other than that, there are no other changes. So scrolling down to the second policy we're looking at is Policy 901 on community education, and that starts on page 101 of the packet. Again, wording changes. A word change from determined to evaluated in terms of educational needs and interests of area of residence will be evaluated periodically, which is something that our community services does. And then we've talked about the Community Service Advisory Council a lot tonight, and in our own policy we had mislabeled the name of that group, and so we fixed that with the policy, and throughout this policy we corrected it to read the Community Services Advisory Council, so that appears throughout. And then there's a couple of legal reference changes to update the correct Minnesota statutes that are referenced or that are relevant to this policy. And then finally, Policy 903 is titled Visitors to School District Property and Facilities, and this is one policy that, like some others, including some that are currently being in the process of review, has significant changes and has had significant discussion with our committee. Administrative staff and our legal counsel determined that this policy, as written prior, needed to be looked at and rewritten, that it was not satisfactory in terms of really having a consistent position and language that would work for our district. So in lieu of the increased focus, I think it's safe to say in general, and including in White Bear Lake, on security and standardizing procedures across the district, much more specific and comprehensive procedures have been made in this policy. So as you will notice when you look at it, basically the entire previously policy as written before has been deleted and basically started over. So this would, I would encourage the entire board and community to look this over and offer any suggestions on the direction that it's taken. The purpose and the general statement of this policy having to do with just the fact that we are really looking at establishing good rules and procedures governing visits on school to school property and facilities remains intact. We've added quite a few definitions so that there's no mistaking when it comes to some of the terminology that's used in the policy that was not present in the previous version. And then in the procedures section, section 4, it details the procedures that visitors shall take when visiting any of our property or facilities, and it also designates, which activities do not require very specific check-ins at each school and so on. So very detailed, very good job done in writing this, and we'll look forward to reviewing it and then looking to act on it at the next meeting.
Mr. Kimball, do any of the board members have any questions or discussion about these? We'll start with Mr. Chapman.
Okay, on the last policy, which is 903-3, I guess it is, in the procedures section 4, there is number 3 that was added that I don't see it was in the previous policy, where it says, subject to the requirements of this policy, parents may observe their child in the classroom for up to 2 hours on 2 occasions per school year. Parents who wish to observe their children in the classroom during the regular school day must schedule a visit at least 3 school days in advance of with the building principal. Central administrator, building principal, assistant principal, or designee may reschedule or terminate any visit in the event of an emergency or unforeseen circumstance.
And let me interrupt. That's section 4A3 on page 107 in the packet.
Okay, thank you. The question I have, and I guess maybe more than one question, is what is the motivation for this? I'm curious as to why we are looking to limit parent involvement in the classrooms for 4 hours an entire school year unless they're volunteering or something. So I guess I'd like to hear what the rationale is for this. The cover note also mentioned that legal counsel rewrote this. I would hope that district that administration was involved in this. I would think so. So I'm just curious as to what the rationale is for this.
Dr. Kazmierczak, looks like you have an answer for us.
I'll do my best. Thanks, thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. So that was added as an attempt to bring some control to the amount of time parents might be in a classroom to limit disruption in the classroom. Before, it was very wide open, and so we needed something to help us define what that would be. And then your second question about working with the attorney, we did work very closely with our attorney on drafting this language.
Okay. Can I
go ahead, please.
Do other districts have this kind of language? I mean, where they're limiting so stringently down to 2 hours twice a year for parental visits that are not involving volunteering in the classroom?
I think it's becoming more common. Again, according to the attorney we've worked with, it is becoming more common in school districts.
Have we observed, can I go ahead?
Please, just continue at will.
Have we observed, has this become a problematic issue within the district?
I think we've been able to head off what could have been a problematic issue by placing some limits. This puts it in policy, though, that codifies it in policy. Yeah.
I mean, I can understand the need to, there can be cases where it certainly can get out of hand, and I appreciate that. What I'm wondering is if we could put something to the extent of number 3 there, where the administrator it's up to the discretion of the administrator, i.e. building principal or e.g. building principal, to allow for any additional visits, so that there is some leeway, because the way it's stated right now, it appears that, somebody could point to this and say, well, you're limited to 2 visits per year, 2 hours each, period, end of story. And I would hate to see that happen.
Yeah, that seems reasonable. That could be.
And perhaps we could put a qualifier on it that the building administrator, for good cause or whatever, can grant an exception to this rule. What do you think of that, Mr. Chapman?
Yeah, I would be open to that.
All right. Mr. Kimball?
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. I just wonder, and maybe Dr. Kazarczyk would have an opinion, would we want to have that, kind of clause be the billing administrator, or would we want it to be more of a central person, just so that we don't have different implementations at different buildings? And again, it may never even come to that, but I'm not sure what the best way.
So we can work on wording that. That probably makes sense to do it that way.
I'll let Mr. Chapman, did you want to follow up on this, or should we move?
I wanted to follow up on Mr.
I'll allow
Kimball's.
Mr. Chapman to follow up, and then we'll turn to you too. Thank you.
The only concern that I would have there is many times the somebody in the central administration may not be aware of the specific parents that are making the request. They may not be as close to the situation if a parent wants more than 2 visits in a given year. And I think I understand and appreciate the concern there, Mr. Kimball, but I do also have a concern that, some parents, decisions may be made that may need to be made more appropriately at the local level.
Yeah, we work pretty closely with building administrators, and at least we have in the past with issues that have arisen regarding visitors to classrooms. So I would, I guess I don't necessarily see it as an issue that the central administration would be involved in that. In fact, principals reach out to us quite often and look for help in how to deal with requests such as this. So it's pretty common that we're working with building administrators. So.
And I think, Mr. Wilson, you had your hand up moments before Ms. Newmaster, so.
I'd just like to add a few points of elaboration. In my own teaching experience, I've witnessed and experienced parental visits in the classroom, and even when they're coming from the best of intentions on the parent's behalf, when it's a surprise to the classroom teacher, it takes several minutes of class time just to, who are you, why are you here, that sort of thing, And so there needs to be some prior coordination and control just to ameliorate that entire situation. The other thing that I'd like to point out, I think it's critical that building administrator retains authority to terminate a visit, because what may have started off with good intentions, the parent is encouraging their child to go ahead, raise your hand, they get the answer wrong, and then it turns into a public shaming. Yeah, that's got to get cut right there, right then and there, in my experience, I would say.
Well, I know as the 4A3 is written, it gives authority to the central administrator, building principal, assistant principal, or designee to terminate any visit in the event of some unforeseen circumstance.
I'm just saying that authority needs to be definitely included in the policy.
Okay. Ms. Newmaster.
And there's one person not mentioned here. I like loosening it up because I think our parents need to be able to observe. I agree, as a teacher, you need to know when people would like to observe so that you can schedule your class and it's not disruptive. But I think the teacher should be involved because, you might be doing something. You may want to have the communication with the parents, so you may want to know what would they like to see. They may not want to visit during certain activities but have concern about others. So I just think if the communication is with all the stakeholders, the teacher, the administrator, who also gives the teacher the backup and the structure and a little power if you want to say, no, tomorrow's really bad, it's a test day, or something like that.
Yeah, and we've not, I have not seen a principal go ahead and schedule a parent visit without working with the teacher.
It doesn't hurt to
Yeah.
mention it.
Okay.
I think totally leaving the word teacher out of
Okay.
there. They should be involved.
Any other comments? What I'm hearing is that perhaps we should refer this back to the policy committee. We have a policy committee meeting coming up fairly soon, and then we could bring it back in our April meeting for first reading once again. Does that make sense? But we can pass the other two policies on to second reading? Mr. Wilson?
Yeah, I actually had a question that preceded all of the discussion we just had, and it's not nearly as incisive as all of the foregoing here. George, I was wondering if you could enlighten us the change in wording from buildings, facilities to property and sites. Is there some legal denotation there that made that change necessary? It seems to me that they're perfectly synonymous.
And that was in the title of the policy.
I think that it just, buildings and sites didn't necessarily, and this is just my thought, maybe, Wayne, you might have something to that, didn't automatically bring property that is not a building to mind. So it just was, I think it's partially seen as just more inclusive of all of the, land, property, besides actual brick and mortar building. Nothing more than that.
Okay.
I don't see anything very significant in the language change.
No, I was just curious. I mean, to me, they're the same, and unless there was some specific legal meaning that I was unaware of.
Well, I see none, but...
Yeah.
Yeah, Mr.
Okay.
Chapman.
I do have one other question, and it's not as meaty as the first one. But under procedures A2 there in section 4, it also, I guess I'd like clarification. Is the intent then to have a central administrative office or is mentioned reception desk rather than a site office handling these requests? And if so, then the last part of that first or that sentence, I wonder if it should state the location in the building rather than, because if it's a central office, then it would make sense the location of the building. But if it's dealing with where in the building, then that.
Yeah, I see your point, Mr.
Because,
Chapman.
for example, I'm sorry.
No, I see your point.
When I go to Otter, for example, I usually have to sign in, when I'm signing in, what I'm there for, and oftentimes who I'm to see, so that the folks on site, if something emergency or whatever were to come up, they know approximately where in the building I am. So I'm just wondering what the intent is, if a central administrative office is going to be handling these requests or a local site-specific office, then that wording would depend, I think, on that.
Yeah, I think Mr. Kimball would like to chime in.
I think you were going to say, I'm pretty sure it's a typo.
Yeah,
I think it's supposed to be in
the building rather than.
And
Okay.
kudos to you. I think we need Mr. Chapman on the.
You just got nominated for the policy
And I'll
committee.
take my place when I'm done. Well done.
All right. Yes, Ms. Newmaster. And Dr. Kazmierczak, I hope you're keeping note of these changes so that we can all discuss them at the.
We'll listen, we'll watch.
All right, Ms. Newmaster.
It's all on tape.
It's all on tape, that's right. Thanks, Greg.
And maybe this is in here and I just don't remember. But as a media specialist in the district, I remember frequently, and by frequently, once or twice a year, there'd be some news event and people call the media center, not the office, and they want to know if they can come and look at yearbooks or something like that, because North has all the yearbooks for the whole district. And we had a specific policy that if somebody is coming to look at yearbooks, they need to call the office first and get permission. And I'm not sure if that's in there, but maybe that's covered by the.
Well, I know in the paragraph Mr. Chapman was just referring to, I think that's what, 3, A23 on page 107. It does say you have to go to the administrative office, sign in, say the location in the building that you want to visit. So if someone wanted to review yearbooks, I would assume. You'd have to go to North Campus main office, sign in, say, I want to go to the media center to review yearbooks, and they'd give you a name badge. That, to me, that looks like how that would work.
It's just so that you would be able to say, the procedure is to contact the office first.
Right. All right, are we agreed that 506 and 901 can move forward next month to second reading, but we should refer 903 back to the policy committee this month for additional discussion? All right, Mr. Kimball?
And this is they're all important, but this one has so much new language and stuff that people may find things later and certainly should pass those on.
And if you find it before the third Tuesday morning in the month, give the policy committee a call, because that's when we're going to meet. So thank you, Dr. Kazmierczak. All right, we'll turn to our first operational item, E1, and that's the proposed school calendars for the next 2 school years. Ms. Gores.
Good evening, Chair Newberg, members of the board, and Superintendent Lovett. You have before you the proposed calendars that we have brought forward on the 13th and then also discussed in great detail on the 27th. We've made a couple of adjustments based on those conversations, and these calendars have been posted on our website as well for the last month for any other input from the community.
Right. Thank you. Well, we have had a great deal of opportunities to discuss these already, so I will entertain a motion to approve the administration recommendation that we approve both the school calendars for 2017 to 2018 and the preliminary calendar for 2018 to 2019.
So moved.
There's a motion by Mr. Chapman. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Wilson. Any questions for Ms. Gores or any discussion? All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Calendars are approved. Thank you, Ms. Gores. We'll turn to our next operational item, E2, and that is action on fiscal year 2018 achievement and integration budget. Ms. Paul and Mr. Barnett, welcome.
So good evening, members of the board, Chair Newberg. So I guess I want to open by, again, thank you all for listening to the presentation last week, and I'm hoping today to just go over briefly go over a few points about the presentation again today, and also share an opportunity to get answer any questions about the budget. So, as we shared last week, the purpose of the Achievement Integration Plan is to help provide resources for White Bear Lake to close and address our achievement gaps in our district. So, as well as pursue all efforts to address any of our racial and economic predictable outcomes for students as we look at our academics. We talked about this last week as well, but our process was based on ultimately a 4 research-based criteria that are considered the equity criteria, and again, these focus on improving access, representation, participation, and outcomes for students here in White Bear Lake. We spent several months, the last several months, focusing on the actual process to prepare the plan. And what's been exciting about, it's up here too. I didn't know it was down here, sorry. This is helpful. Over the last several months, we've been able to really focus on a 4-stage process that the state recommended to us for determining our priorities for our achievement integration plan. The first step was forming a leadership committee for our achievement integration plan. The second stage was to conduct the district-wide needs assessment. The third stage was identifying the actual district priorities to complete the plan. And the fourth stage will be an ongoing step which will support the implementation and the monitoring as we evaluate the progress that we're making on our goals. if this here is just about the actual achievement integration team, we had an opportunity to roll over our world's best workforce team into our achievement integration team as well. And this was again a reminder and added benefit, because a lot of the members of this committee are people who have been actively involved in the conversations that are relevant to all of our student efforts here at White Bear Lake, as well as representative of our students' demographics, are the demographics that represent our district. And when we look at the efforts that went into stage 2 in conducting our needs assessment, this was a collective effort of both members of the cabinet as well as other members of leadership here in White Bear Lake. The first step was us focusing on a systems assessment that brought our attention to classrooms throughout our school districts, as well as focusing on the shared spaces and as we conducted building walkthrough assessment and collected data. We also focused on engaging staff, parents, and family members through a survey process, as well as direct contact with family members to get qualitative and very open-ended feedback. And we looked at some very quantitative data that focus on our enrollment trends, proficiencies around our state accountability measures, our state tests, as well as our graduation rates, our teacher demographics, and as well as some of our STEM course offerings. What also a part of the data collection process, a part of the process was also taking a very intentional approach to analyzing our data. And in the analysis process, we were able to focus on 7 areas and looking at how well are we serving our students in terms of our climate in schools, our environment, resources, our leadership in governments, our continuous improvement and inquiry, our instruction and assessment, our student engagement outcomes, and our family and community partners. From assessing our data and looking at the impact of our through our analysis process, we were able to determine what the state-approved interventions, and these are activities that the state the state have approved and will support activities and actions that will allow us to work towards meeting our objectives based on our needs assessment, and ultimately to close our achievement and opportunity gaps. We decided to focus our efforts in the area of student engagement, and that's been important for us because we believe by increasing student engagement, we will find that our student outcomes across the board will be more favorable and equitable for all of our students. One of our core targeted interventions is focusing on family engagement initiatives. And this is important for us because we believe that by re-engaging family members and being intentional about the support that we're providing families and helping them understand how to better support their students, we'll see better outcomes. And our key approach to doing this is by increasing the number of coach liaisons we have actively working in the district and creating and sustaining relationships with parents. And also being intentional about building awareness through programs that we've had in the district, including Among Radio and some of our PK, our Parent Institute quality education efforts. We also want to be intentional about providing more professional development opportunities to focus on increasing student engagement. And one area that we spent time discussing last week, but is this term cultural humility, which we believe by providing professional development and a focus in this area, we'll see and improve relations between our teachers and our students, as well as creating a more inclusive and welcoming environments, as well as looking at some of our data-driven dialogue, and continuing our work on data-driven dialogue to better understand how to adjust our instructional practice based on what our students are showing us they know and do not know, and what skills and knowledge they possess. And then also, the district has invested heavily in AVID, and we look to continue continue to invest in AVID by providing more access to teacher trainings programs, or to teacher training within the AVID program to make AVID more school-wide and present. One last targeted area for us is to focus on improving career and college readiness for our students, and we look to re-engage a partnership we've had with our equal opportunity schools efforts a year ago that we saw very strong results in improving the number of equitable enrollment in our classes, and again expanding AVID to ensure that more kids are prepared and ready for more rigorous classes, and increasing our support around the student transitions so that we feel good that we feel good about our students' preparations for the next level, and also our teachers' preparation and readiness to receive our students. And again, we have a state-designated racially identifiable school, Willow Lane Elementary, and we are excited to continue our STEM efforts. Our efforts at Willow Lane. One of them is our STEM programming that's been designed to create integrated learning environments for the students at Willow. One of the programs has been a partnership for environmental education between Willow Lane and Otter Lake at Tamarack Nature Center. We look forward to continuing that partnership, as well as our Inside Ed Out program through a partnership with the Mayo Clinic, and continuing that work, as well as sorry, my throat was going. Okay. As well as providing more support to our teachers and families in that school by having a cultural liaison designated exclusively for the families at Willow Lane. We also see that being an opportunity to, again, bring families closer to schools, but also make our classrooms better and more prepared to receive and utilize the feedback that parents are bringing to the school. Sorry. And in stage 4, we will look to assess the implementation and effectiveness of our program by intentionally monitoring the outcomes, and evaluating how are we performing against our intended goals. I believe you all have the budget and have had an opportunity to review that, so with that quick review, I'll open to any questions you all may have about the budget.
I think what we'll do first is get a motion on the table and then have any discussion or questions that the board members have. It's true, the full budget is in our packet. So I will entertain a motion to recommend that we approve the fiscal year 2018 achievement and integration budget as it appears in our packet. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Wilson. Is there a second? Second. Second by Ms. Newmaster. Does anybody have any questions for either Ms. Paul or Mr. Barnett about the presentation which Mr. Barnett gave, which we heard in more extensive detail at our work study meeting, or the budget, which is in our materials tonight? Mr. Chapman.
First off, I want to thank you for all of the work that's been done on this, because I think it's a great step forward for the district, and I wholeheartedly embrace it. It's not a question, but rather, well, maybe it is a question, but if either of you could speak to what you had mentioned at the work study as far as the beefing up the numbers, a little more detail about the cultural liaison, staffing and the timeline and so forth. If you could just get into that a little bit more for the folks here, and then also that will be watching this on TV.
Certainly. We currently have one cultural liaison actively working for the district. Traditionally, we've had 2, and I guess a few more that's worked at our pre-K schools as well. we are looking to fill the position we have open now, and immediately, among the approval of this budget, post the other positions. We have someone currently working at Willow in a capacity that is similar to the cultural liaison role, but with a little bit more training and support. We would see that person being able to transition full-time into a cultural liaison position. And then we look to hire the third one, essentially the early part of this, later part of the school year, very early part of the summer. Did you ask about the role?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Sure.
I think one of the biggest opportunities that we have is to really better engage with our families for two purposes. One, to make sure that all families have an understanding about what's going on at school and how to be connected in the students' learning. And second of all, making sure that when we engage families, that we have the opportunity to have those feedback loops to make changes within our schools and within our system to better listen to what they have to say in order to provide a better experience for their students. And so for that purpose, we've got some good structures in place, but I think we have a great opportunity to be more responsive by having more people in those roles so that we have better feedback loops to make the changes that they're telling us are going to better serve their students and the families.
Thank you.
Any other questions or discussion? Yes, Mr. Kimball.
So are there 3 cultural liaisons then? Is that what the total's going to be? I guess I'm not.
There'll be 4 in
There'll
the
be
budget.
4
Correct.
total. Okay. And then just going back, this maybe at the work study or when we talked about it last, the intentional social interaction events at school was one of the things listed, and that just seems like a great idea. To some it feels forced, but things have to be forced sometimes, right? So do we know what some examples of this might be, or what we're thinking about with this type of thing? How's that going to work?
Chair Newberg, members of the board, last year we conducted an intentional social interaction, or ISI, at Willow Lane Elementary, in which families came and had the opportunity to just be shoulder to shoulder in conversation with people in all roles across the district and families from the school community to just share what was on their mind in terms of opportunities they saw for us to improve. And that this is the perfect example of making sure that we're positioned to receive that feedback and actually do something with it in terms of making changes that are going to better serve students. And then we also had a ISI at Lake Ayres Elementary last year, and both of those opportunities were well received by families, and those 2 were actually run by students. We had student leaders that actually met with leadership at the schools and came up with questions and provided really the facilitated conversation, and we're very fortunate to have involved students. And in addition to that, we also want to make sure that the staff are having ownership in creating the experience, because they're the ones that ultimately are the people that are going to make the changes. And so it's part of broadening the strategy for student-led ISIs as well as staff at the building level, facilitated by the cultural liaisons.
I had one more, but do you want to go?
No, go ahead, and then we'll turn.
I don't know if we can put the presentation back to the first, or no, oops. Yep, toward the beginning, there, oops, there. So this is the purpose, right, of the whole thing, are these 4. So, we see these 4 things, and then in the very last slide, it talks, the 4th stage is implement, monitor, and evaluate. Mm-hmm. And so it only says those 3 things. Implement, after going through a nice detail of the 4 stages, then the 4th stage is implement, monitor, and evaluate. And it only says that. Are we assuming that we're going to evaluate these? That's what I'm just wanting, I wish I would have saw these at the end, saying these are the things that we're going to evaluate. Some are, objective, or, some are qualitative, some are quantitative, but that's what we're going to see at the end, is a evaluation of how well we achieved these 4 purposes.
So first, I would like to take advantage of the opportunity here to thank Mr. Barnett. Really, this year has really been deep learning in terms of building walkthroughs, collecting a lot of information to really get a better understanding of the current state of the experience of our students in the district. This money is really targeted towards closing our achievement and opportunity gaps. So as we look at our broader academic and strategic plan and how we're delivering on our mission in school district, this money is really targeted towards what are the things that we're going to specifically do to make sure that the students who right now aren't fully experiencing success in the district, that we have a targeted strategy and a plan for meeting the needs of those students and families. So Mr. Barnett's done a great job of really bringing together a lot of information. So that being said, we're at stage 3. So right now the budget is due to the Minnesota Department of Education, and then we start really focusing on the implementation plan. And so that's something that we'll be having conversation with you in terms of what the detail of the implementation looks like after we've got the approval on the budget. And to your point, we want to be very intentional about being clear about what those metrics are. And one of the things we really appreciated in the work study was the extensive dialogue we had around how are we going to have specific feedback loops with targeted audiences. And so we had a chance to dialogue and really think about the implementation of focus groups with the parents that are intended to be served through these targeted strategies, making sure that we build those in addition to that comprehensive group that you see that the committee is made up of, really being intentional about how we're going to follow up with the families that these strategies are intended to serve. So we really appreciated that feedback and have some things that will be part of the implementation plan, and then metrics aligned to how we're going to show you whether or not we're achieving those goals.
Okay. One thing I'll add there, this program also allows us, because of the needs assessment, really steers us in a direction of identifying, again, as Sarah said, areas that we know that students are not experiencing the success that they should. How can we be intentional about identifying what are the equitable outcomes? So when we think about, for example, our engagement work, and that being the key priority for us, a lot of it's really created a unique opportunity for us to define engagement and define engaged. For us, engage as we've identified engagement as a priority because we've noticed that we do have challenges or disparities in our attendance, disparities in our students being removed from class, disparities from students being suspended and for extended removal from class through suspension. So because those areas have been notable, because those areas are notable opportunities for improvement, this work is a chance for us to, again, define success and, again, implement our strategies to address those areas. And as we improve there, we will address or identify new opportunities and new targets. So it will be a progressive plan, and we're excited about the next 3 years because of that. So,
any other questions or discussion? Oh, yeah,
I
Ms.
had an
Fahey, I'm
original
sorry,
one.
but this goes back to the ISI. I was going to, just from both at Willow and Lake Ayres, at the end of it, a lot of the community members' parents were saying, when are we going to do this again? This is really valuable, the conversations we've had here. And I think it was even more important that it was student-led. And then those same students from our district worked at the World Cafe at Maplewood Community Center with a multitude of people from different areas there, different districts, and it just did a fantastic job in terms of running those conversations.
One thing to echo that point that is really powerful about this opportunity to infuse the capacity of the cultural liaisons is that I think actually we were at a table together at one of the events, and it was fascinating to hear and see our parents build relationships, but also recognize our limited capacity to help continue to nurture that relationship and help it move from school to school. You know, we saw a parent who may have had a third grader at an elementary school together, but also realized they had a seventh grader at a middle school together, and with increased capacity of the cultural liaisons, we can see relationships strengthening and student identities being validated, and essentially in one night, because we've been able to be intentional about how our staff, through very skilled training, are engaging these parents in these moments to ultimately increase their presence, but as well as, again, build relationships that we know sort of anchors them in the district. So.
Any other questions or discussion? All right, we have a motion and a second on the table. This is a financial matter, so it calls for a roll call vote.
Chapman?
Aye.
Fahey, aye. Kimball?
Aye.
Mullen?
Aye.
Newberg?
Aye.
Newmaster?
Aye.
Wilson?
Aye.
All right, the budget passes. Thank you so much, Ms. Paula and Mr. Barnett. We'll turn to our next item, E3, and that's the Indigenous Peoples Day resolution. Ms. Daniels, are you addressing this?
First, I'd like to, Chair Newberg, members of the board, and Dr. Lovett, I'd like to recognize Andrew Adam, who is our chair of the Indian Education Parent Advisory Committee, who gave a presentation last week to the school board on the resolution for Indigenous People Day, which is the second Monday in October. I'd just like to recognize that he gave quite a lengthy presentation with lots of detail about its importance to the committee and to the parents, and again to the community. So I'd like Andrew just to stand up and be recognized for his work.
Thank you very much for coming, Mr. Andrews, and also Mr. Adams, and also for your really moving presentation last week. We all appreciated it greatly.
So I have nothing else to add to the wonderful presentation you've already had.
All right.
So if you
We have a draft
questions.
resolution in the packet. We've had an opportunity to hear Andrew present on this last week and to discuss it, so I will entertain a motion to approve the resolution as it appears in the packet.
So moved.
Motion by Ms. Fahey. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Chapman. Any additional conversation or questions about the motion? All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The resolution carries. Thank you, Mr. Adams. Thank you, Ms. Daniels.
Thank you very much.
All right, we'll turn to our next item, E4, and that's action on accepting the Glassrud Fellowship Grants. Dr. Lovett.
Madam Chair, members of the board, annually the foundation has recommended Glassrud Fellowship Grants. It's a competitive process for our teachers. They were really moved this year. I think they had 3 times the amount of money requested as was available to them. The board members have before you grants totaling $16,000. The purpose of each grant, what we're asking the school board to do is to accept the Glassrud Fellowship Grants totaling $16,000 from the White Bear Lake Education Foundation.
Thank you, Dr. Lovett. We have a recommendation that we accept the Glassrud Fellowship Grants totaling $16,000 from the White Bear Lake Education Foundation. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Mullen. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Wilson. Any questions or discussion? All right, this is a financial matter, so we'll have a roll call vote.
Chapman?
Aye.
Fahey, aye. Kimball?
Aye.
Mullen?
Aye.
Newberg?
Aye.
Newmaster?
Aye.
Wilson?
Aye.
All right, the motion carries. Our next item, E5, is action on the Summer Academy Joint Powers Agreement. Ms. Paul, is this you? Thank you.
Madam Chair, members of the board, this is a joint district opportunity that is a fee-based program that is a great opportunity for identified high potential students to be stretched in rigorous activities and courses in the summer.
And we have acted on this in the past, the same joint powers agreement. We have a recommendation that we approve the Summer Academy Joint Powers Agreement as presented in our packet. Is there a motion to approve?
Motion.
Motion by Ms. Newmaster. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Wilson. All right, any questions for Ms. Paul regarding this? All right, now this calls for a roll call vote.
Chapman.
Aye.
Fahey, aye. Kimball.
Aye.
Mullen.
Aye.
Newberg.
Aye.
Newmaster.
Aye.
Wilson.
Aye.
And the motion carries. Thank you, Ms. Paul. We'll turn to our last regular item in the agenda, and that is the approval of the contract with Dr. Wayne Kazmerchek to be our next superintendent of schools. I think Mr. Mullen had suggested that I present a little background on how we came to be here today, so I will. Dr. Lovett announced a few months ago that he would be retiring as of June 30th of 2017, which put us in the position of needing to hire a new superintendent. We posted it with the assistance of Linda Gores, our director of HR. We had, I believe, 23 applicants respond, and we had retained Mr. Ken LaCroix to assist us with this search. When the applications came in, there were the cover letters, there were resumes, there were letters of reference, there were a lot of different materials. Ms. Gores prepared a thick 3-ring binder for every one of the board members in her office. We all went in individually. We went through these. Some of us, I think like Ms. Newmaster, went through these applications multiple times. We took notes and we ranked the applicants as we read the materials. Then our consultant, Mr. LaCroix, Ms. Gores, and I got together. We went through all the rankings, what the board members had said, and we narrowed the list down from 23 to 5 candidates who would be moving forward to first interviews. Those first interviews occurred the last month of February over 2 nights. Pardon me?
Last day of February.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Yep. It was 2 nights. Yeah, well, we had 5. 22nd and 23rd. Yep.
Got it.
Yep.
Yeah, you said last month. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, it was in the 2 days in the last week of February. We asked all of the candidates the same 15 questions. We took notes, we observed them carefully, we applied the information which we had obtained about these candidates both through a review of these packets, and we had also, a number of board members had sought out independent information about these candidates as well. Following that, our search advisor, Mr. LaCroix, suggested that we take a blind tally of where we stood on these candidates. Our plan had been to take the top 2, send them to the final interviews, which would have been 1 or 2 days or evenings in the first week of March. But we took a blind tally after those first interviews, and 6 of the 7 board members ranked Dr. Kazmerchek as our first choice. And based on that, Ken LaCroix suggested that instead of pulling Dr. Kazmerchek and 1 or 2 other candidates in for final interviews, and 1 or 2 other candidates may not want to have to come in for final interviews because they would have known that 6 of the 7 board members chose Dr. Kazmerchek as their top choice. We decided to offer Dr. Kazmerchek the contract without proceeding to a final interview, which is what happened. Now, as far as the contract negotiation, Vice Chair Don Mullen and I and Ms. Gores got together last week. Ms. Gores compiled a large amount of data from our neighboring school districts, from school districts which are not our neighbors, but from other school districts in the greater metro area, with contract terms for a number of different superintendents metro-wide. Mr. Mullen and Ms. Gores and I sat down. We went through that. We went through the existing contract terms for Dr. Lovett. We went through the existing contract terms for Dr. Kazmerchek as assistant superintendent, and we prepared a draft contract that we were prepared to offer to Dr. Kazmerchek. We also ran that draft contract by outside counsel, Mick Waldsberger. We sent it to Dr. Kazmerchek. He sent a very respectful, limited counteroffer where he proposed just a couple of additions and some minor clarifications to his contract. Mr. Mullen, Ms. Gores, and I reviewed that, and we believe those were fair and continued to make the proposed contract competitive, so we agreed to them. We then sent our final offer to Dr. Kazmerchek, encompassing the portions of his counterproposal, and we had a contract. So I sent the last version of the contract to the board Friday. I also sent it Saturday because the version I sent Friday was not openable in the technical form I sent it, but everybody was able to review it Saturday. Board members have contacted me with questions. I provided additional information over the weekend, so we are here. So we have a recommendation on the part of the board by Mr. Mullen, Ms. Gores, and I, that we approve the contract for Dr. Wayne Kazmierczak to serve as the superintendent for White Bear Lake area schools beginning July 1, 2017. The contract is not in our packet because its terms are confidential until it's signed, but it is the version that you all received from me by email on Saturday. Is there a motion to approve this contract?
So moved.
Whoa. Let's try that again. Moved. Okay, Mr. Wilson has the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, second by Ms. Fahey. Any discussion, remembering that no discussion of the terms of the contract are public until the contract is approved. All right, this is a financial matter. We'll take a roll call vote.
Chapman.
Aye.
Fahey, aye. Kimball.
Aye.
Mullen.
Aye.
Newberg.
Aye.
Newmaster.
Aye.
Wilson.
Aye.
Congratulations, Dr. Kazmierczak. Welcome aboard. All right, as usual, the final agenda item is board forum, an opportunity for board members to share any issues or items or events coming up. Is there anybody who has anything for board forum this evening? Mr. Kimball.
Yep. Just a couple of things. As usual, in our packet, we have personnel announcements, and we want to say farewell and job well done to some staff who have announced their retirement. One of them is our Director of Student Activities, who's not here tonight, but Mr. Herman, who's been with us since 2010 and served many years, distinguished years in other districts. An 18-year program assistant leader from Lincoln is retiring. Fourth grade teacher from Atoska, 18 years with the district. And a North Campus great health assistant, 29 years with the district. And hopefully they're watching, and we want to thank them so much for just great service to our district and a wonderful time in retirement in the next chapter. Also with us tonight for at least a while, and we were able to meet our new staff, Cynthia Mueller, our Otter Lake Elementary principal, and Brian Peliquin, who will be replacing Tim Herman as the Director of Student Activities, and it was delightful to meet them. And then, of course, Dr. Kazmierczak.
Thank you. Does anyone else have something for board forum? Mr. Wilson.
Yes, and Ms. Daniels forewarned, I'm going to ask you for some help on this one, but on Thursday, the transition program is hosting an event to acknowledge the sponsorship their partners have provided, and I think it's at 5:30? It's at the Transition Center on 130th Street in Hugo.
5:45, I think.
I thought it was 4:45. Everybody get your calendars out.
You do, but yeah, and I mean, we all realize that partnerships are becoming ever more increasingly necessary to sustain the operations of our district, and I think this is just a great opportunity to meet personally with the faces to these partners and really to thank them for their support.
It is.
Mm-hmm.
It is. Thank you, Mr. Wilson. Thank you,
Time?
Ms. Daniels.
4:45. Okay.
All right, Ms. Newmaster.
And I have one brief but sincere thank you for all of the schools and students that filled out those super fun cards that came for
School Board Recognition Week.
I didn't know there was such a thing. But all those, they made it up. But it was wonderful from all the schools and programs and kids and pictures. And they're just all over my kitchen table. So it was very nice. I wanted to say thank you, and my cards are probably better than your cards, but I bet you got some really nice ones too.
They were lovely. Does
Thank
anyone
you.
else have anything for board forum? Seeing nothing, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Madam Chair, I move to adjourn.
And I second that. We are adjourned.